You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold, episode 31. Today we welcome in Theresa Viera, founder of Modern Legal out in North Carolina. How are you, Theresa?
I'm doing good, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. We're really excited to have you. You recently submitted your story. We featured you, and the story it's very compelling, and I feel like a lot of people out there should hear your background because your story is one where you actually, you lived the life of somebody who ended up being in the type of law that you sort of witnessed as a kid or growing up. So and that's family law. So I think it's very interesting. So like, tell us, like, what led up to you being a family law attorney? Like, what would you like to share from when, you were 9 years old or whatnot, like what you referenced in your story that led you up to being the family law attorney that you are today in North Carolina?
Sure. And thank you for providing this forum to have me share this story, because I think a lot of people not only are interested, but also are in need of hearing how different children in particular overcome the trauma of violence in the household when they're young. So my story was very much a situation where I was born into a family, of course, of not my choosing. It was a very violent household for years prior to me being born. And when I became of the age around 9 years old, that I noticed certain things didn't feel right, didn't seem right. That's also the same age range when children are trying to figure out right versus wrong. And so, as I indicate in my story, there was one incident in particular where my father went to attack my mother. My brother came to her defense, got in between. My father ended up striking my brother's nose, and it essentially broke. And from my perspective, I didn't really have that much emotion, surprisingly. It was more of, I've seen so much up to that point, and I was just absorbing everything. I was like a little sponge, just sitting there thinking, oh, my mom's not happy. She's crying, and my brother's hurt. This is not right.
Right.
I don't understand why this is happening. And so it clicked in my mind, okay, this is wrong. So how do we get around this? How do we get through this? And in my 9-year-old mind, of course, I knew nothing about the law. I knew nothing about a judicial system. The only thing I had known up to that point was pretty severe mental, emotional, physical, and financial abuse.
Right. Wow. So that carried on just totally through school, through grade through school, high school, till college. Like, when was it that you actually said, okay, like, this had impacted me so much that I want to be an attorney? Like, do you remember the turning point in your life where that happened?
I do. Actually, I do. And this makes me smile, which maybe sounds odd, but I remember after that incident when I was 9 years old, I kind of looked at my father differently, even though I was daddy's little girl. I very rarely, if ever, was actually the focus of the abuse. Yelling, yes, but not really physical, not until there was an incident when I was about 11. And it was after that incident where I had this, I don't know if it was courage or it was just being naive, but I was like, I'm leaving this situation whether my mom leaves or not.
Wow. When you were 9.
A little bag. I was like 11 or 12, and I was like, I packed a little bag and I'm out. And of course, where was I going at 12 years old? There was nowhere to go, right?
Yeah.
But I remember having a number of conversations with my mom, and my mom finally decided to get out. And we were at a court hearing, and I was about 12. I don't know if it was the same court hearing that I testified at, but it was one of the multitude of court hearings. And I remember in my mind, all I could hear was my dad saying that I was going to surmount to nothing, especially because I was a girl, that I was in my bedroom a lot. I did play a lot of video games. And in that court hearing, I remember seeing there was a female judge, a female clerk, a female bailiff, and even my father's attorney was female. And then there was my mom, and her attorney was female. And I was like, wait a second, I'm female in my young child mind. I'm female. I think I could do this too.
Yep.
And up to this point, my mom had gone to a therapist, had gone to her religious leaders, had gone to other family members about the abuse. And all of them were like, oh, work on the marriage, work on the marriage. It was really her attorney that helped change the course of our lives. And so looking at that moment, it all came to me where I was like, I want to be that person. I want to be the person who's standing next to my mom. Yes, arguing with a judge, and yes, questioning my father, the abuser, because at the end of the day, that's what changed the course of our lives.
Right. So feeling like you were protecting her, sort of like, and arguing and advocating for her. For sure.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So that stuck with you. Now, did you take classes like as you got through high school? I know the curriculum's pretty same, but like, was there anything that stood out to you as like super interesting, like in high school, or as you went on to GW, which is a terrific school, by the way? Congratulations on, some amazing accolades. So was there anything that stuck out to you that you took at classes knowing in the back of your mind that like, that's the person you wanted to be?
Well, I would say it started in, I believe it was a 10th grade English/social studies class. It was a very unique class because what the teachers did is they actually combined the English and social studies coursework. And so it was an extra long class. And part of the curriculum was to present arguments on different social situations. So for example, and where I believe it was the 10th grade, we're talking about, making a certain day a holiday, for example. Mm-hmm. And so you would have your for side and your against side. And I remember having so much fun. Even if I didn't agree with the side I was arguing, I remember standing up, okay, I'm going to go to the side with the least number of people, and I'm going to make an argument, and then I'll switch. It led me to then founding actually my high school's debate team.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. And what grade, do you remember what grade that was in high school?
I think I founded it, I want to say it was either my 11th or 12th grade year.
Okay.
Because it was toward the end.
And that exercise you were doing, I'm sorry, what grade was that in?
I believe that was 10th grade.
Oh, yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So you like the persuasive nature of it, like regardless of what you were arguing.
Right?
Yeah.
Because there's always at least two sides to an argument, right?
Right.
And so it definitely inspired me to not only get the courage to speak up, but to also create a form of thinking where I could argue almost anything.
Right. Okay. So then you go on to UNC.
Yep.
What did you study there?
Actually, so I went to George Washington for undergrad.
I'm sorry, George Washington. Yep. That too. George Washington.
Yeah. Yep, for undergrad. I studied international affairs, and my focus was conflict resolution, actually.
Okay.
Now, it was in the international context, but you would be surprised how similar warring nations and warring cultures or warring towns or peoples are similar to warring spouses. Okay. Because at the base of it, people have pretty basic needs. They need shelter, they need food, clothing, water, and you'd be surprised how many similarities I see in whether it's a group of people or a spouse trying to fight for those rights for themselves, as well as in particular their children.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So that's I mean, I was a legal studies major at UMass, and I love that too. That was sort of a great, I'm sure you loved your professors too, undergrad and everything. So that's awesome. So then just to move one step forward to law school. So you're
Yep.
in law school. So tell me, like, one thing I'm personally curious is, like, you get to law school, like, you knew you always wanted to go, like, there's that young Theresa who, I mean, it really hit you, and that you had that life impacting moment at court, seeing all the women around you, and thinking, I can do that too. So you're at law school, like, what was the biggest challenge there? Like, what did you have? Did you have a big challenge in law school, or did you, like, what, and if you did, what was it? And then, like, what did you like the best?
That's a great question. Law school is its own unique experience, as you know. It's not what people think. It's definitely not Law and Order. It's definitely not what you see on Suits or any of those other TV shows.
Right. I remember them saying, like, it's not like we're going to be walking in with Armani suits, you know.
Exactly.
Like, it's just not like that at all.
No, it's very much just studying essentially how one side tries to screw over the other side.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different facets to it, of course. Like, you have your evidence class. So that's just talking about how you get evidence, not only to support your case, but then get it in at trial. You have your civil procedure. You have, a lot of case law that goes back hundreds of years, and you're just trying to track it. So I found it interesting how much law school was more so adjusting the way we think than anything else. And then funny story, I never actually studied family law in law school.
Really? Okay.
I did take a specialized course on domestic violence,
Okay.
Which was a specialty course, but I didn't actually take family law. I think it was more so because going back to that sense of creating an argument basically in any type of situation, law school helped me a lot in understanding how the law helps a person advocate versus the specifics of a family law situation.
Right. So I know family law was, like, a pretty popular course too, as far as I remember when I was in law school. But, like, what was it like taking the domestic violence class in law school? Did that kind of bring up anything from your past or not?
It did, not in a bad way, but it did in the sense of I noted how little our society has progressed, because laws are a reflection of what society deems important, right?
Yeah.
And so, yes, there was this huge movement that started primarily in the 70s for there to be more protections. And there was the creation of the Domestic Violence Order of Protection, which is a very unique legal tool, historically speaking, because it traverses the line between civil law and criminal law, which you essentially don't see anywhere else. And so I saw these progressions as I was studying domestic violence, but then I also saw a little bit of how backwards it was, because if you think about it, in North Carolina in particular, we have assault on a female, which is generally the criminal charge if a male abuses his significant other, if his significant other is female. But as you and I know, domestic violence doesn't only impact females.
Right.
So that seems odd. And there's all these other oddities that exist. The severity of punishments don't really seem to be that severe when abusing your animal actually carries a higher sentence than abuse or assault on a female.
Okay.
So I noticed these adjustments that were being made, which is in the right direction, but definitely we're not going far enough. And then to take it one step further, at least the protective order laws are very much reactionary instead of being proactive. And they definitely don't necessarily encompass all of the forms of domestic violence either. So you never really see financial abuse as a crime in a domestic violence sense. Right. It's usually more physical, mental, and emotional abuse.
Okay. Well, so, all right. So then you get through law school.
Yes.
Did you have, how many jobs did you have before you decided to open Modern Legal?
So I was at 2 law firms before I decided to open up my own law firm. I was pretty fortunate right out of law school to get a job with a family law firm here in Charlotte.
Okay, and that's what you were looking to do, as we spoke about earlier. You were still looking to do family law, like you still.
Yeah.
That was still.
Yeah. And actually, to get a little bit further down that route, I was trying to incorporate my undergrad degree as well, because one of my independent studies in law school was trying to assert domestic violence or protection therefrom as an international human right.
Okay.
So I was actually also looking into human rights law as well.
Okay. All right. So that's interesting. So how long were you at the two firms before you opened up your own?
Sure. I was at my first law firm about 4 years, and then at my second law firm just under 4 years.
Okay.
So yeah.
And then what made you say, okay, like I can do this on my own. Like I want to open my own firm. And I know you named it Modern Legal. So
Yeah.
that's not usually somebody, they name it after themselves or they name it after their, somebody else, like a person. So tell us about that.
Sure. And I'm glad you asked that. I never really thought I would have my own law firm because I admire a number of the attorneys in my area, and here in Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, and the surrounding counties. There are a lot of good attorneys here, and I felt like if I could work with one of them, I didn't have to do the business side because I wanted to focus all my time on representing individuals and helping families and helping children. So that really was my focus. However, and my paralegal can attest to this, there came a point where I always felt in my two previous firms that the clients weren't coming first and their needs weren't coming first. And so my paralegal and I, over lunch one time, I was discussing with her, maybe I should apply to another firm, et cetera. And she's like, well, regardless of where you go, someone else will always have the final say. And so the only way for you to have the final say is to create your own law firm. And I was like, okay, done. We're going to do it. And
Really?
So we planned it out and gave my notice, and I thought about a name. And I thought one great name, especially in the midst of a pandemic, was Modern Legal, because I really do want my firm to symbolize not only that my clients are moving forward and I'm helping them through this chapter so we can create a new chapter for them in their lives, but also for our community here in Charlotte to have a law firm that isn't afraid of using technology, isn't afraid of the adjustments in the laws as we progress forward. I mean, I can't tell you how many attorneys were hesitant, and judges and clerks, and understandably hesitant about virtual hearings.
Yeah.
And I had been using virtual technology in my mediations, especially for my military members when they're stationed abroad, to ensure that we did a mediation virtually or we did something else virtually to ensure that distance and other factors didn't prevent us from adequately addressing everyone's legal needs.
Wow. Okay. So that's a lot. You really well thought out.
Yeah.
So you started during the pandemic. You just tell us about that. Like, was that different?
Sure.
A lot of people, I mean, the job market was rough, and you really took that leap. I mean, that is a testament to you right there. That's amazing.
Oh, thank
Congratulations.
you.
So, like, tell me about that. Like during COVID, like what was that like starting a business?
Sure.
You took your paralegal with you, right? So, like you're saying,
Yes.
I mean, he left.
She
left work too, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So let me preface this with, when the world goes crazy, our business gets busier.
Yeah.
That's just how family law generally is, because with increased stresses on the family and the household, we get more calls. Now, with that stated, I noticed at my previous firm that there wasn't enough support for the staff, and there wasn't necessarily a camaraderie to support each other, and thereby also provide everything needed for our clients. And I'm talking down to ensuring there's a really good webcam. Like, I need to make sure there's a good webcam for court hearings, and things like that.
You didn't have a good webcam? Is that what, like?
I didn't. I'll leave that there. But yes, there were just some issues, and the culture had changed. And regardless, I just knew it was time for me to go. And my paralegal, who had been with me since my first law firm, was like, let's do it. My clients, who I admire most of all, their confidence and their loyalty in my services and my team's services was unwavering. And a lot of them, in fact, were so supportive and continue to say, hey, are you good on the business side? Do you need help? And I appreciate that more than even my clients could ever imagine. And so there is the ethical obligation to give clients the right to choose to either stay with me, my former firm, or go elsewhere. And I'm grateful to state that pretty much all of them came with me. And so I already had that baseline of business. And because I already had that baseline, I definitely needed to bring my paralegal along. I mean, that was just out of the question to not have her there.
Right.
I can do a lot of the stuff she does, but she does it better for sure.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. That's a huge step that shows your confidence in your abilities, I think, and it's a huge testament to you and Modern Legal to have your staff go with you and your clients go with you. So boom, like here we are today. That's a great story too to hear during the pandemic times, because we're always hearing such negative things, and we have to hear them because it's a lot of unfortunate situations that happen. But it's very nice to hear and highlight your story and your success. So congratulations. So like, what's been the most interesting thing so far, or like difficult, or the best thing, just anything about owning your own firm? Or is there anything surprising that you want to note?
Sure. So I knew it was going to be a challenge, and I knew, from a very distant third-party perspective, that running a business is not easy. But once you're in the weeds of it, it's completely different. I mean, it started out with, okay, how do I contact the state bar to make sure I have a proper name? And then I incorporate it with the Secretary of State. And then, oh, wait, I want a trade name, which is Modern Legal, because I don't want to use my regular name.
Right.
And how do I get that approved through the ethics committee? I mean, it's this back and forth. And then hiring an individual and doing payroll. Wow, that's a whole nother thing. But I'm very fortunate to have a great network. So I have like my banker who had the bank accounts ready like that afternoon after I was incorporated. My financial advisor who's like, okay, yes, no more 401k, but we can look in the future to opening up different investment accounts for your employees. And then there's my accountant who, of course, need to pay taxes. So having that professional on my side as well to make sure my monies are in order, if you will. It's just a lot more than I ever thought, but it's a good type of stress. I'm learning. I feel like I'm growing. And that's not only helping my business, but now because I do represent small business owners, I can honestly say, okay, this is how I did it, or these are the steps I took. Maybe you want to try this. It creates a better form of representation and basis of legal knowledge I can provide.
Okay. Wow. No, that's amazing. And I want to, if we could help you, like here at Lawyer Stories, if you see anybody like on the feed or anybody in there who's from your area, or we've done, I believe we've had family attorneys on the show. Like if there's anybody you want to connect with, lawyer to lawyer, like we'd love to do that for you. So we'll be keeping in touch like far past this episode. So that's great. So congratulations again. So what kind of cases are you mostly taking on right now? I know it's family, but like you became involved in human trafficking cases. Like
I did.
Tell us a little bit about that, like what that entails, and the other type of cases.
Sure. I presume a lot of family law attorneys would say this, but a majority of our work is child custody related, not only because children are precious to us as individuals and human beings, but also because the needs of a child change so much over time. Mm-hmm. So in theory, I mean, with one child, you can have up to 5 or 6 trials because the needs of a 3-year-old are completely different than a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old and so on. Yeah. Specifically as it relates to human trafficking, I am part of a group called Charlotte Triage. Okay. And so we are kind of a group of attorneys that address the legal needs of human trafficking survivors. As you can probably guess, I provide for the family law need. And so such cases come to me if the children have been trafficked, or if the trafficked survivors have legal needs themselves. For example, they had children and they're fighting for custody of their child from either the pimp or someone they were abused by. I would say my most heart-wrenching case is where 3 children were trafficked by their parents. So I represent an extended family member in the custody and the termination proceedings, in adoption proceedings. So it's been very tricky to address not only the mental and emotional aspects that are evident in a human trafficking situation and children having to survive this trauma, flipped against the legal realities of our world. And, for example, some people are amazed that the parental rights, because it was the parents who trafficked them, weren't automatically terminated. And so from my perspective, I'm like, yes, but there's all this law that needs to be followed as well.
Right. Wow. That's that's definitely, we need good attorneys out there, definitely handling those cases. What about anything else? Are you doing other domestic abuse? Like, what kind of cases are you handling right now, modern legal?
Yeah, so we handle various abuse cases as well as non-abuse cases, but we have domestic violence cases. Domestic violence, the prevalence thereof has increased significantly.
Well, I was going to ask you that, like, due to COVID, is that like a thing? I don't want to say a thing, but is that something that's increased due to COVID, like people being at home and just like domestic violence, has the rate increased?
Yeah. In particular, and I can really only speak about Mecklenburg County, but the rates have increased significantly in our county, I imagine nationwide. And I do believe it's because there is increased contact with the abuser, because the abuser isn't leaving to go to work, and neither is the victim. Additionally, there's the stressors that have come along with this pandemic, including financial stressors to not, the stress of not being able to see your family members or friends, or heaven forbid, someone in the family is diagnosed with COVID. And so there's all these additional pressures and uncertainty. Uncertainty also can drive anyone crazy. And so you see individuals who don't know how to handle the stress of a pandemic, don't have the tools really to address it. And then additionally, you have the already skewed perception of an abuser that is all about power and control. And so you've lost control of finances, of going out, of traveling, of i.e. pre-pandemic life. They're going to take out their frustrations on their significant other. And we've just seen that increase significantly. And children at home. I mean, children are at home and it can get stressful, trying to keep up after children and trying to make sure they're doing their studies while you're also doing work.
Right.
Imagine the stress.
I mean, with job loss and everything like that, I could see that. So what is empowerment representation?
Sure.
As you referenced in relation to some domestic violence cases, like, can you talk about that?
That's a great question. It's kind of a term I coined. When I am talking to, I'll say, one of my non-domestic violence clients, and let's say I need, photos of the home. I'll tell them I need 20 photos, I need one of each bedroom, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll tell my client what they need to do.
Okay.
That's very different than how I handle my domestic violence cases. And the reason why is most, if not all, domestic violence survivors have already been told every day of their lives what they need to do and what not to do. And if I just step in almost in the same lines of their abuser, telling them what to do, 9 times out of 10, even if my client listens to me, they're not going to like me. They may even come to resent me. And I'm on their side. And the goal is always to make sure that my client feels safe and that my client feels like my representation of them, my team's representation of them, is helping them through this chapter, not further traumatizing them.
Right.
So instead, what I do is what I call empowerment representation is I give them choices, and then they choose how to proceed in pursuing a goal with those different choices. So for example, if I say, a great tool of evidence is pictures of your house. How do you think we can get those pictures? Do you want to take pictures? Do you want my paralegal to come over and take pictures? Or maybe one of your friends? What do you think is the best way to get pictures of your house? Okay. And so now my client has, sometimes it can get stressful because they haven't really ever made choices for themselves for a very long time.
Interesting.
That was the form of abuse and trauma. And these small ways of giving them choices and then making a choice is rebuilding their ability to make further choices about their lives and empowering them to have the courage to make choices. So then when we're, in a custody mediation and I say, what is a custody arrangement you want, they're not so hesitant that they're not able to make a choice because I've been empowering them all the way along.
So you've been almost teaching them what it's like to make a choice, how to think for themselves a little bit, in case all of that power has been taken away. You're sort of giving it back and teaching them how to have that power a little bit.
Exactly.
It's interesting. That's like really psychological. That's like, I don't know, it's pretty kind of deeper than just a choice, so that's good. Yeah. So like, how do you approach your clients in family law matters? Like, I know there's like a lot of high emotion. I don't know if you deal with like divorces and do you do?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
All of that.
So like, there's a lot of high emotions that run. Like, how do you, how do you deal with it and approach it?
You mean other than my wine bar?
Your wine bar, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's that, but no, honestly though, it really is in a way compartmentalizing, because at the end of the day, I'm here to do a service for my client and to make sure I take everything that they're throwing at me, whether that be facts or scenarios or children or money or emotions. It's kind of delving through all of that and then parsing out what I need to build their legal case. So it very much is, I am hand-holding. I am trying to calm their nerves. At the end of the day, though, there's plenty of times where I put them on the phone or we have a meeting and I just let them vent. Now, I will say sometimes I get very useful information when they're venting and I learn stuff that I don't think I would have learned otherwise. But it is allowing my client to, in a way, try to heal through expressing themselves.
Definitely.
That helps. And then I also have my team. So, if I'm busy in a court hearing or a mediation, I also have my team to be able to, handhold when I'm not available. So it's nice to have a team as well.
So so tell me a little bit more about your team. Like, what's the structure of Modern Legal?
Sure.
And how do they handle their cases, and like, what do you have them doing? And so we heard about your paralegal, who's obviously very, very loyal.
Yes. Yes. So from the perspective of a potential client, if they were to contact the firm either through our website or by calling in, everything goes to my legal and business development assistant. Okay. And so she will, return phone calls, schedule consultations, also kind of vet the legal cases. So if someone calls and they're like, I was in a car accident, I'm not the attorney for them. So we'll, send them out to a personal injury attorney. Or, vet in terms of, maybe they want a more legal aid type of attorney or representation, or maybe it's more of an eviction matter. So she vets and kind of channels what cases are actually calendared on my calendar. And then from there, I'll have the consultation with the prospective client. We'll go through a game plan. I try to make sure not only do they know the basics of how family law works, but how the law then applies to their specific situation. And we talk next steps and costs. Now, should a client then choose to retain, that's when the case kind of shifts over to our legal team. Obviously, I'm the attorney on their case. So what I mean by legal team is I do have my paralegal who will be contacting my client for all those bank statements and all those photos and everything else that helps build a family law case. And we'll go through the different scenarios of whether we want to try to negotiate or mediate, or if we want to file a lawsuit and start the litigation process. I also have an associate attorney that is now helping me because it's gotten busy.
Yeah.
And so she does a lot of the research. She's actually transitioning out of a nonprofit organization focused on domestic violence. And she wants to become a family law litigator for some reason.
Yeah.
And so she joined our team, and she is helping our clients a lot. She's very good at speaking with individuals who have endured trauma, which is huge. And she's also really smart. So she does a lot of the research and is helping me draft pleadings and create the basis for a lot of the work that I work on my own as well.
That's some great experience to be able to give somebody. How long has she been on board?
So she started as a law clerk, I would say pretty much when we opened. It was probably around September. Yeah, around September. And then I promoted her to associate attorney as of January 1st.
Oh, congratulations to her. That's great.
Yes.
So you have a total of 4 of you.
Yeah, 4 of us for now.
Okay.
We're looking.
Yeah, and like
out there.
I mean, this is just, I feel like this is just the beginning too for modern legal. I mean, I think it's a very interesting concept. Obviously, you have, I think people would gravitate towards retaining you. And I don't, because of this, your personal story too. I mean, so you obviously have a passion about what you're doing. So that is, I think that's huge. So that's, I mean, I know it wasn't easy back then, but it's,
yeah.
It's, I think these things kind of come full circle, and that's sort of your story a little bit.
Yeah.
So what else do you want to say? Anything else about your practice or about your employees or?
Well, I truly hope that, especially with now the history of being founded during a pandemic, which,
Yep.
Who would have thought, a year ago we'd be talking about a pandemic, that we've all endured a lot, and we've all experienced almost like a reawakening of sorts. And I think that we've learned a lot from 2020, and that we can essentially create a new chapter, not only as individuals, but as a community, as a nation. And I hope that my law firm is a piece of that change in that progression to move forward, because there still needs to be a lot of change in this world. And as exhibited by my firm's name, Modern Legal, I do want to bring us into a modern age where we're more adequately addressing the needs of our families, because I personally do very much believe that a lot of issues in our society could be addressed if we help our families and children at the start of their lives. And if we can protect more children and we can provide more protections of children, then we have less adults with mental health issues or abusive tendencies. And if we stop with the whole always assuming that everything needs to be adversarial, which is how our legal judicial system is currently set up for divorces, and we try to collaborate more and we try to mediate more,
mediation, yeah,
then I do think we could provide much better services as a legal community for our families.
Mediation now, it is required, I think, in some states before you get divorced, or there is like a period of time you have to wait. Is that correct?
So in North Carolina, can't really comment on other states, there is a year of separation that is required between the date of separation and the date you can file for divorce. Additionally, in our custody matters, mediation is required. And then there's also, we call it alternative dispute resolution here in Mecklenburg County, but it's essentially mediation for property matters. My concern is, though, is a lot of those forms of mediation still don't address like the fundamental issues in families.
Okay.
And so I generally prefer private mediations versus the court-ordered mediations, because I've literally sat at a mediation where it comes down to one thing. It comes down to, well, I want an apology, or it comes down to one side table that husband bought but wife really wants. And so if we can get through those relatively smaller issues to avoid the mudslinging that you see in a courtroom, then let's do it. Like, there's no reason we can't try to ask for those things. I will say a judge can never force someone to apologize. And so the only way you're going to get the apology is not in a courtroom. It's going to be elsewhere.
Probably. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Makes sense. All right. Well, so I don't want to leave anything out. If there's anything out that you wanted, how can people get in touch with you? Like through email, through?
Yeah. So reach out to me. My direct email address is Theresa@modernlegalnc.com. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We do have Modern Legal NC hashtags and other forms of contact via those social media platforms. And then, of course, you can visit our website. That's www.modernlegalnc.com. And just shoot us a note. If anyone else has questions that I can assist with as well, I am happy to help. I like to say my primary goal is to educate. And then if you need me for your legal case, I'm here to help.
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much, Theresa. We appreciate you being here, and your story is super compelling, and so we're glad we were able to get you on the show to do an episode. And we'll definitely be in touch, and we'll help you any way we can here at Lawyer Stories.
Thanks, Ben.
So that's it for episode 31 today. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.
The Lawyer Stories podcast is produced by Marketing the Law. Are you looking at your social presence every day? Potential clients are. Learn how to magnetize your brand with the help of Marketing the Law. Find us on Instagram at Marketing the Law to learn more.